And welcome into another episode of Off Script. My name is Zak Herbstreit, and Oklahoma fans, there's a lot of buzz in the air right now with John Mateer and his pro day and his new throwing ability, mechanics, all that. But whether you thought it was good or whether you thought it was bad and same old John Mateer or something like that, you have an opinion on it. And it kind of, in my opinion, begs the question, is John Mateer the guy for Oklahoma this season? What I mean by the guy, I mean, will he get him over the hump? Will he get multiple playoff wins? Will he get him to a national championship or win a national championship, if you will? We're going to get into that today. But before we get into the episode, if you enjoy college football, if you enjoy the channel, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel as well. It really helps me out a lot, so I appreciate you guys. But let's get into it here. I want to talk about last year first. I want to talk about last year's John Mateer performance, and before we get into the pro day and all the hype around that, I feel like that needs to be addressed and just kind of his up and down season that he had last year. John Mateer threw for 2,885 yards last year, had a 14-11 touchdown interception ratio, and had a 65.1 QBR. So statistically, not the greatest of years for a quarterback, especially in the SEC. If you want to be successful in the SEC, you got to play a lot better than that. But it also, it kind of begs the question again, like, why? What happened there? Like, compared to where he was at Washington State, putting up all these numbers and, you know, being a Heisman caliber kind of guy. And granted, I thought he was a Heisman guy first 3 or 4 games going into this past season. Watching him against Michigan, I was like, oh my Lord, like this. I think, you know, a lot of people were caught up in the drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit. And granted, I know after watching those pro day videos, a lot of people were like, I'm back in the Kool-Aid, which granted, I might be too, but we'll get into that a little bit. But I want to talk about what kind of went wrong last year. First off, the hand injury. I mean, and that's a valid point. It really is. I think maybe he was rushed back into it. I think Oklahoma was almost so desperate to have him back for Red River, and then he kind of kept playing with it, and I don't think it was fully healed. But majority of his turnovers throughout the entire season came post-hand injury. So that definitely played a factor. And I felt like post-hand injury, those throws that he was making, those dig routes, the comebacks, the throws where he really needed to put it on the money and be precise, he was sailing the ball over. That's from what it looked like. That's what when I watched the film, it just looks like those easy throws where those connections, it should be pretty easy to throw to, like it just sails over, man. He's just high on it. So I think the hand injury definitely play a factor in that. Next thing here is just the adjustment to SEC play, going from the Pac-12 and playing these defenses that are not nearly on the same level as SEC defenses. I think it was a little bit of a shell shock for John Mateer. The October to November stretch of games saw a major improvement of opponents. We're talking Texas, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Alabama, and Missouri. And granted, they only lost 2 of those games, which is astounding. And still, when you look up John Mateer highlights in those, it's all going to be, for the most part, I'm not discounting his ability to throw the ball at all here, but majority of those highlights are him using his legs in the Alabama game, the Tennessee game, something like that. Also, his defense bailed him out most of the time in those games. When it was a matchup games, the defense was the difference. In the Alabama game, the Tennessee game, Missouri game, I feel like. But especially in that Alabama game with the pick six, really turning the tide there, no pun intended. But I also want to talk about when you play better teams, they have better players. So when you have an offensive line that was relatively inconsistent throughout the entire year, let up on average 2 sacks a game too, so it's really hard to stay in the pocket when you have an offensive line that's kind of just letting people through, and then maybe they miss a nickel rifle off the edge, and then that's when you get franticking. You start panicking. You're like, well, I just got to get the ball out. I want to take a sack. But that's where I'm at on John Mateer last year. I just don't think he was adjusted to SEC play. I think the hand injury played into it a little bit, but I want to talk about 2026. Obviously, spring ball didn't start till March 25th, so right now it's all speculation and just, you know, guessing here. We're all guessing. But we saw what he did on Pro Day. We saw the improvements so far, and whether you think it was incredibly good, I know a lot of Oklahoma fans out there are thinking like, hey, we're seeing improvements. His arm angle, his feet look good, something like that. Or a lot of people are out there just saying like, same old John Mateer, like he can't throw the ball. It's like, all right, well, like give him a chance. Let's see him in spring. Let's see what he has. But we did, however, get a peek at John Mateer throwing at Pro Day, like I said. And here are my thoughts on the big improvements that I saw. First off, the release looks higher. I feel like last year, and especially at Washington State, he had a tendency of having that baseball throw, that sidearm release, which, got to say, it looks cool. Patrick Mahomes does it. Kyler Murray does it. And they can do it because, they're NFL guys. But John Mateer, young athletes that think it looks cool and think you can get the ball out faster like that and you think you're accurate, it's just not true. The more higher release, the traditional way, you get the ball out faster, and also it is more accurate. So seeing that change is definitely I'm more optimistic about that. I saw there was a comparison from August of 2025 to March of 2026, and it kind of is like night and day for his arm angle. And I was like, all right, well, like maybe that's promising, because maybe he won't sail the ball over a receiver's head by 5-6 yards. Like that would be huge in a game. Second thing here is calm, collected feet. I feel like that is pretty easy to learn in the offseason, and especially in routes versus air where you just got some, wide base, good base, and have, good drop and everything. But when linemen start rushing, when the pocket starts to collapse, what happens to the feet then? So it remains to be seen in spring. Hopefully in spring we see those feet still calm and collective. And I know he's a runner, so he will get out of the pocket still. But when he's throwing on the run, does he still have good form there? Is he not throwing on his back foot as much anymore? I think that would be a big adjustment for John Mateer. And the last thing here, he's added more touch to the ball. As a former tight end receiver myself, more tight end, I'm just saying, down the field catcher, having touch to a ball is monumental. I think it just helps the receiver kind of catch it in stride when there's a quarterback back there just slinging it, and just like you got to know what ball to throw for each specific route. And I think he did a really, really good job in pro day, just putting touch in the ball, making the ball catchable for the receivers. But Oklahoma fans, I'm curious to know what you guys think. John Mateer obviously had a little bit of a dud of a season last year, but coming different this year. I feel like there's a lot of optimism there. Had a year under his belt in the SEC, so excited to see what can happen. But Oklahoma fans, eager to hear what you guys think. I want your bold takes. But like I said, my name's Zak Herbstreit. This is Off Script. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video. I'll see you guys soon.